Your work always tells a story. Let's have a close look.
Hello, my name is Anil Dhaliwal with Close Look, and we are here today in downtown Victoria, BC at Studio Robotso. Just want to thank them for allowing us to use their space. And I'm sitting here with Alana Rosenfeld?
That's it, yeah.
Cool.
Hi.
And she's shared with me that she has a passion about self-empowerment, specifically related to kids and empowering children, and has created a book, and it seems to be the first step of many. What's it?
It's called The Little Book of Self-Empowerment.
Cool. And is this the final product that you're going to be sharing out with the world?
So this came about from an experience that I had in my life when in my early 20s I fell really ill with chronic debilitating eczema. And I found myself connecting with a friend whose mom lived in India. And I went to India to get help with my health. And I was in bed there for a couple of months. And in my youth, I graduated in university in communications and philosophy. So words have always really meant a lot to me. And I love the semantics of things and the deeper meanings of things. And my favorite quote of all time is, life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards, by Kierkegaard. And so when I was lying in bed in India, I realized that I had fallen ill in a large part because of how I felt about myself when I was really young. I remember going back to my youth and thinking like I was really negative, and I made things mean stuff a lot, and I was bullied a lot, and so I internalized a feeling of like a lack of self-worth that was really deep, and it carried on into my adolescence and then into my young adulthood.
So, and how this kind of ties to the book that you've made in the project. It's about, specifically, if we can look inside it,
Sure.
it's affirmations.
So,
Affirmations.
And quotes and things like I can do anything and I deserve success.
Right.
And
So, tied to like internal dialogue, how we speak to ourselves as human beings.
Right. So what I realized when I was in bed in India was that if I didn't change the negative thoughts in my head, I was never going to heal my body.
Right. The dialogue patterns.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this project is really born from a desire to have children know that they can own their own self-empowerment, that they can change the messages that they may have been telling themselves from a young age, and that they can be in charge of their whole life because of how they really relate to themselves from a young age. And my vision for like what this can be is that like I see classrooms, and we used to get our math book and our physics book and our English book, and I just visualize having a little book of self-empowerment and sharing it with my neighbor and having conversations about how awesome we are, and then like what could that open up for kids and for their future if they really believed in themselves from a young age. Like I had parents that told me I could do stuff, but they were really busy with their own lives. It wasn't like they were all about me knowing how awesome I was, and so I think that my hope for this is that it can be a tool for kids to come to know themselves in a way that is self-sustaining, self-empowering, and that they can carry on into their adulthood.
That's all really powerful and really profound and very something I trust will gain momentum and popularity and power, and I hope and will and absolutely know you have the capability and capacity to carry forward.
Thanks so much, Neil.
Well, something that comes to mind is maybe like diversification. So like this could be like maybe like the first step, like this little book of self-empowerment. That to me that almost sounds like the start of a franchise.
Well, my vision for it is that I hope to one day create a foundation where I can create tools and share them with kids and have this conversation about self-empowerment just grow. And I have visions about how it looks like. Maybe we're wearing t-shirts that have these awesome messages on them, or maybe we're raising money to help kids follow dreams, or it's a whole world that I'm just realizing is opening up. Like this, there's a whole world of positive psychology and teaching people how to really elevate their level of happiness from the inside. And then a world of something called sustainable happiness, which is the idea that, often the things that we buy, they lose their spark after a while. We don't really enjoy them that much anymore. But there's this idea that we can empower ourselves to have happiness from the inside that is sustainable. And I really just want to be part of that movement. I really just want to see kids empowered all over the world. So that's the bottom line, Anil, and that's why I created this.
In your journey on this path of self-empowerment and sharing that, how have the people in your life been, as they observe you and watch you grow into this role and project that you're doing? What kind of support and reaction have you been receiving thus far? Especially from your family.
Well, my family's been really supportive, actually. So they've been with me in this entire journey, and they've seen the ups and downs of it and where I've been, and they definitely can see how my mental patterns have changed and how my negative thoughts have transformed my being. And they definitely support that this is something that they want to see grow in the world. You know, I mean, we have a lot of great conversations about what it was to grow up in our family, and it was pretty normal, right? But there's a lot of children in the world that have a lot of varied experiences in their family homes, and really it's helped me not take that for granted, what a supportive family that I really do have. And I just, they encouraged me to share the message, and they would share the message right alongside with me. So hopefully they will in the future.
Where would you like to take this whole project in, say, 5 years?
Okay, well, so my vision for 5 years is I don't see a limit for the book, you know? I see kids around the whole world that I want to help see their own ability to self-empower them, to empower themselves. And I would love to, I'm right now in the process of putting myself online on Facebook and on the web, and I want to share this message, and I just want to kind of light a spark in different places, be it in schools or in libraries or community centers or on the playground. I just want to get a conversation about our self-empowerment started, or one of many that's already out in the world, and evolve on that. And so, as I said before, I think I have a vision that I could create a foundation where I would create maybe engagements and events where I'd have children together sitting in a circle, sharing from the book and talking about what it means for them to read some of the words and some of the phrases that they love and the way that they really feel about themselves in the world and in their schools, you know, just really talking about what's there for them. And so I guess that's what I see for myself is maybe I'm traveling, maybe I'm talking to kids in schools, maybe we're, you know, or maybe I'm just observing it and watching what happens when kids open the book and talk to each other. I know sometimes you just drop a seed, you know, and you see what happens. And I know that this message is something that I didn't know I was longing for as a child, these messages. And my greatest hope is that even if one child reads it and is empowered.
And if you impact a life, if you just, yeah.
That's it. And you know, I do have a special place in my heart for kids who have eczema because I did as a child and then as a young adult. And I know that comes from a place of sometimes fear and a lot of stress. And I want to have a tool that could be a part of maybe relieving some of that for children, that they can have themselves, that they don't have to go to an external source for. Like they won't have to go to a doctor for that kind of reassurance. They can empower themselves to know that they can heal themselves with the help of different practitioners for sure. But you know, that's a really good foundation to have, you know, and one that I actually feel I was missing a little bit of as a child. So I don't really see a limit, but 5 years, who knows? I'm just gonna be working on it every day and sharing it with people every day, and hopefully I can share it with kids.
Awesome. Would you have any final words or just anything specific you'd like to share with the audience? Just a message, perhaps a message of empowerment.
Yeah, let's pick one from the book. I would say, I love this one. Let the beauty of what you love be what you do. See, that's where I'm at right now. I'm finding so much beauty in this project and in this process and in discovering what's possible. And that's what I wish for everyone.
All right, well, thank you for your time, Alana. It was really wonderful to hear your story and all the things that you have envisioned for the future. So, once again, my name is Anil, and we are with Close Look, and we wish you all the best for the future.
Hey, we're Praise Team Junior Showcase, and you're watching Close Look.
Woo! We're from Bollywood Stars, and you're watching Close Look. Woo!
Hello, my name is Anil Dhaliwal with Close Look, and I'm here with Dr. Carmen Bolter. So, Carmen here is a filmmaker, author, and retired professor at the University of Calgary.
Hi.
So, Carmen, you've published a lot of work and done a lot of talking and traveling on the subjects of ancient civilizations and new findings, and asking knowledge that asks new questions to what some of us have taken for granted as we've been told the stories over the years. I'm just curious about your background and interest in, like, maybe just like an overall overview of your sphere of interest down this realm.
Well, it all started when I started having past life memories as a little girl. And so I didn't know what Egypt was, but I had these visions of the necklaces and the headdresses and that sort of thing, and then I was only 6. So I started looking in costume books to see if I could figure out what it was, and then I learned it was Egyptian. So I asked my mother, "Where's Egypt?" She said, "I don't know, look it up in the atlas." And I did, and I went, "Oh, it's on the African continent." And then I started looking on my father's bookshelf, and he had a book on the Sphinx. And as soon as I opened it and saw a picture, the first picture I ever saw of the Sphinx, I wanted to climb through, and I wanted to know exactly how close you could get to it. And then there's like, well, why are you thinking this? And even with the past lives, I had a voice saying, don't tell anybody. Right. And so, I've been chasing around those ideas since, but it's much more than that, because my book was on goddess-centered cultures. And so I always knew in history class, I had a terrible time. I used to feel like I was going to pass out. And every time they'd say something, I go, no, that can't be the right thing. I somehow intuitively knew that the stories we were being told weren't true at all. So I had a natural curiosity for all of that. And so I planned to go to Egypt, early on. I think I was 12 when I was shopping for tickets and realizing it was going to cost to go. And I went there the first time in 1977, and then that really triggered me, because when I was in the real places, I knew things. I knew, around the corner there was going to be a door. Wow. Yeah. And then when I was overhearing the Egyptian guides talking, I just again felt like I was going to pass out, like it was the wrong story. Okay. And it's interesting, because that was kind of the effect, was that I was just going to completely, fall down with it, because it was just that striking that there's something wrong with what they're telling us. Whoa. Yeah. And so that's all cellular memory, I think. Right. And so I actually started having past life readings, and by the time I was 36, I had evidence of 85 past lives of my own, and I stopped counting. And so basically, that's what I'm doing. Is I get a hunch, and usually that comes from some kind of past life memory, and then I go to try to find if it's real, how it's real, what fits together. So it's been a really long journey. I've been to 56 countries, and Egypt counts as one, and I've been there 29 times. And I was just counting this morning. I've spoken in 14 different countries on the international speaker circuit. Wow. Yeah, so I think that people are naturally curious about who we are. What are we doing here? Being shoppers and spectators and consumers isn't really what we're doing here. And so I think that there's a really a big natural curiosity in people about our ancient origins and pre-Diluvian things. And is Atlantis a myth? Is it real? If it's real, why don't we know anything about it or know enough about it? Why do they want Plato to sound like, he was kind of misguided and making stories up? And so there's an awful lot left to be found, but an awful lot being found quite quickly.
Wow, that's very, very, very thought-provoking. So, given you've had a very, spiritual path, as you've shared with us, and you also have a very, what's the word I'm looking for? A very astute academic background as well, which I find is amazing. It's a great balance to have. So I'm curious about your academic journey and how this is all tied in with this natural curiosity that you've had.
I was born in Montreal, and my parents were afraid that we'd get French and English mixed up, so they started us off, my sister and I, as little French girls, with French friends, French relatives, French camp, songs, TV, and then they put me in grade 1 in English. I'm like, really? I thought that I knew that was a bad idea. All this is going on when I'm 6 years old, based on the other story as well. And so, I learned English quite fast, and by the end of the first year, I came first in the class. So I was, really interested in information, all kinds of information. I ended up finally doing my PhD in linguistics because I wanted to understand how those patterns work, and languages don't cross, they're in patterns. But it's also the only cross-disciplinary field, because what academia has done in an effort to keep people separated and keep fields from, finding things out in a cross-disciplinary way, social anthropology doesn't speak to cultural anthropology, and so it actually is the field that allows for cross-disciplinary work. So you take psycholinguistics, social anthropology, all these different subjects are part of linguistics, and so that made sense to me, and it also fit with my past. And it ended up being computational linguistics because that's educational technology, and my background before that, I was studying psychology. So I worked as a psychologist for 17 years, and and so, but the thing is that everything's the psychology of, as far as I'm concerned. How do we feel when we hear certain things, and what blocks us from, developing our potential and that sort of thing. So my master's is in educational psychology, and the PhD in educational technology, which actually has its roots in linguistics. But along the way, I did a year of academic work at the University of Calgary in the Faculty of Archaeology, because I thought I was going to do the PhD in archaeology, but then I realized that you just have to toe the party line. You have to tell the story the way the story's always been told. If you come up with original theories, you really, nobody's going to pay attention. So I feel like I kind of got away with doing my real work of Egyptology, kind of around the sides, and by leading tours and going over there and doing a lot of field work, 5 years of field work on the Giza Plateau, and that sort of thing. And so I've been chasing after, my past life recall all the way through, and yet doing a lot of academic work.
That's very profound and a very powerful meeting of supposed opposites, but you've tied it all together, which is wonderful. I'm curious how, given the subject matter that your work often deals with, and I highly encourage people who are viewing to check out Dr. Carmen Bolter's work. It is very powerful and thought-provoking. Given the sort of provocative nature and how you're not going with the traditional story of what's being told, what kind of reactions have you faced through all this?
I've had very little trouble, to tell you the truth. Even in academia, like when I was teaching in the Masters of Education in the Graduate Division of Educational Research. But we all know what we can say and what we can't say with our colleagues. And a lot of people will talk about, well, if somebody asks you at a party, you give them one answer, but if they ask you in the hall of academia, you give them another answer. And so I think the cat's out of the bag, that most of what we're told and what academics are representing isn't really connected to reality. So the Pyramid Code has aired in 38 countries on national TV, and it's on Netflix in 6 countries right now. And so it's done really well, and it's an overwhelmingly positive response. Now networks say, oh, we don't have an audience for that in Canada. It's never aired in Canada because they don't have an audience yet. When it went on Netflix Canada, finally, I mean, it wasn't airing even though it was supposed to. The minute it went on, it was just like popcorn popping, like all these people contacting me that their son had seen it, and they say, well, I know the lady who did that. So it's been an overwhelmingly positive response. It's been translated into 6 languages and more on the way. So
that's the Pyramid Code. The Pyramid Code on Netflix in Canada. Is there any specific messages you'd like to share with the audience, given who you are and what you do, the things that the journey that you've been on, and what you think? What does it mean to you, and what does that mean for you? What does that mean to other people when you look at your journey and the knowledge you've come across and what you want to share?
Well, I think people stop themselves. I mean, this comes back to my background as a psychologist as well. And I think we get lured into being spectators and consumers, and we want to be entertained. There's something about that, and people's creativity has been shut down. Not everyone, but a lot of people are afraid to put pen to paper, or don't know how to make a film, or various things, and they stop themselves. But we also are caught in what I call systemic distress, which is utilities, taxes, insurance, and interest, right? There you go. And that just chews up our energy, chews up our time, right? Chews up our money for sure. And so we have to be very, very vigilant within ourselves to stay true to our soul's purpose and to even discover our soul's purpose. So I think that the biggest malaise that people have is if they're disconnected to their own purpose. So, I think it's very inspiring when somebody is connected, but if they're not, they're in trouble. So too many people stop themselves.
The knowledge which you've been bringing forth to the mainstream, and is there anything else you would like to share with us here today?
Well, I'm making another series right now. Yeah, it's called The New Atlantis, and I've been in production for about a year, but I'm just about to go on 3 different film shoots in the next little while. So going to all the Mayan temples in Mexico and building a picture of what Atlantis may have looked like. So there's a lot of research and there's a lot of evidence, but it hasn't really been put together in a way that's positive. So the style of the Pyramid Code, instead of telling you what is and what the story is, it invites people to think for themselves. So the last line is, it was how would our culture change if consciousness was the highest value instead of profit? Right? So it's not telling you what to think, it's inviting you to think outside the box. So I'm going to continue with that style and the same composer, Michael Damon, and the same voiceover. And so it'll feel continuous in a way. But it's dealing with times that are at least 50,000 years ago. Well, we don't have a map really for going back in that length of time. But there's all kinds of new discoveries, new pyramids being found all the time, and they're pre-Diluvian. Right, so that means before the flood, which means that they've had silt on them and then trees have grown over the top of them, and so most people don't think of them as pyramids. So I'll be unpacking a lot of that information, but bringing it into the future as well, because now there's a project called the New Atlantis in Russia, and they're building, according to Plato's model, a series of pyramids, but there's 12 different domains of technology, food production, beekeeping, all these different things, telecommunications, transportation, for opening a new paradigm in education. And that's happening now. Right. And it's linked to very real things from the ancient past, but we've forgotten. So we keep telling everybody they keep telling us we're the smartest we've ever been, but I think we've lost a few pieces here.
I'm curious about your role as filmmaker. So with regards to the movies being made, what is your involvement and oversight of that look like?
Director, producer, writer, and funder. So I've gotten a little help with this one, but mostly I've been putting my own resources into it. And I don't even know where the idea came from, other than the fact that when I was a professor in Taiwan for 4 years at a university, they gave me all this equipment. High definition cameras, tripods, computers, plane tickets, and I worked for 4 months and get 2 months paid off for years that went on. Cool. And so I was making video tutorials for my students in the days when there weren't such things now. There's all kinds of video tutorials out there on YouTube to learn how to do practically anything. But once I had the camera and I was using it, I thought, well, if I'm going to Egypt every few months, why don't I just start filming? So I actually hired a videographer to come with me from Hollywood, and a producer and a director, and they didn't really know their craft well enough for me, so I ended up filming some of it myself and getting other videographers and going back and forth. And so I'm pretty hands-on, building it from the ground up, commissioning the music, writing the script, the whole thing. Yeah.
Powerful. You've accomplished a lot. Absolutely invite people to go, once again, take a look at Dr. Carmen Boulter's work. It is incredibly thought-provoking. So with that, I think we've reached a good point in this interview, and you've shared a lot of, once again, powerful information with us. So yeah, I want to thank you for coming to talk to us today. And I know that you're going to keep working, and I absolutely encourage you to keep working and keep being on the path of blowing people's minds and spreading truth, So yeah, my name is Anil Dhaliwal with Close Look, and we wish you all the best.
Close Look is brought to you by Applewood Kia. Two locations in Surrey and Langley. Applewood Kia.
Good evening and welcome to the 2015 Everything Wall of Stars, where young people from all over the Lower Mainland are highlighted for their contributions to society. We're talking about humanitarianism, charity, advocates from all different types, and we're excited to highlight them tonight. I'm hosting, and I really want to find out what's going on inside, so let's go check it out.